I asked my daughter, "So, when's the wedding?" She smiled and said, "Oh, it already happened yesterday. Just close people were invited." A week later, she called and asked, "Did you send the money?" I replied, "Didn't I mention?" I dialed Maya's number with the same nervousness I once felt before a job interview. My only daughter, my only child. Surely she would answer, and maybe, finally, the silence between us these last few weeks would dissolve into something tender again. When she picked up, her voice was light, almost careless. I asked softly, "So, when's the wedding, sweetheart?" A pause, then her answer cut like glass. "We got married yesterday. It was just for special people." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Her words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Special people. As if I were something other than that. Something disposable. My hand trembled around the phone. I had spent 3 years covering her rent, paying for groceries, wiring money every time an emergency arose, all because I believed that love demanded sacrifice. Now that sacrifice mocked me. Across the room, the pale lavender dress I had bought months ago still hung on the closet door, a dress I had chosen for her wedding. I had imagined standing beside her, smiling in photos that would outlive us both. Instead, it looked like a costume from a play where I'd never been cast. Memories flooded in, Maya at 7 years old, storm-soaked and trembling, running into my arms whispering, "You're my favorite person, Mom." I had believed her. That belief had built my entire life. But now even those memories curdled in the back of my mind. The phone rang again. It was Helena, my sister in Ohio. "So how was the big day?" she asked brightly. I couldn't bear to explain. My voice quivered as I said, "Oh, small, intimate. Just them." The lie scraped against my throat. That night, I lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Shame and grief tangled until I couldn't tell them apart. Special people. The phrase looped endlessly in my head until morning light crept across the lavender fabric still hanging, untouched. That dress had become a monument. To love misplaced, to trust squandered. The next day, I laid the lavender dress across my bed like an accusation. Beside it sat the unopened shoebox with silver heels I'd chosen to catch the light at her ceremony. On the nightstand rested an envelope with 10 crisp $100 bills, a wedding gift that now felt like a cruel joke. I opened my phone, and there it was. The wedding I had been written out of. Maya stood in a lace gown, radiant, holding Gideon's arm. His parents flanked them, glasses raised. Her new family. Her real family, it seemed. My eyes burned as I studied every detail, the dress I'd unknowingly paid for, the ring that glimmered like an accusation. I whispered into the stillness, I was never meant to be part of this picture. I shut my phone, slid the envelope back into the drawer, and pushed the lavender dress deep into the closet. But the humiliation refused to stay hidden. Beneath the ache, something new stirred, sharp, unfamiliar. Not sorrow, but anger. A week later, the phone rang again. Maya. Her voice trembled this time. "Mom, the rent's overdue. The landlord's threatening to evict us. You forgot to send the transfer." For a moment, instinct almost took over. I pictured myself rushing to the bank as I had so many times before, sacrificing groceries, medical appointments, comfort, just to keep her afloat. But I stopped. I sat down, steadying my breath. "Didn't I tell you?" I said quietly. "I only help special people." The silence stretched. I could almost hear her breath catch. "Mom," she stammered, "don't be cruel." The word cruel cut deep, but not deep enough to undo me. "I have to go," I said, and hung up. The house went still. For the first time in years, no phone buzzed. No request arrived, disguised as love. I brewed coffee, inhaling its bitter scent. Each sip tasted like something new, freedom, perhaps. Later, I spread my bank statements across the table. Every line a record of my devotion. $500 a month for rent, $12,000 for groceries and utilities, $3,400 for emergencies. In total, $33,400. My late husband Robert's savings, gone. "I spent your legacy buying respect that never existed," I whispered toward his photograph. The next morning, I went to the bank. "Cancel all automatic transfers to Maya and Gideon," I told the manager. His eyebrows shot up. "You've never missed a single one in 3 years." "I've been blind long enough," I said, signing the forms with a trembling hand. Outside, the air felt cleaner, almost sweet. For the first time in years, my money and my life were mine again. But the quiet didn't last. 3 cars I didn't recognize were parked in front of my house when I returned one afternoon. Inside, my dining table was covered with papers. Maya, Gideon, and a man in a gray suit stood waiting. "Mom," Maya said softly, almost rehearsed. "We're worried about you. This is Mr. Fallon, an attorney. He'll help you sign a few papers so we can manage your finances. For now." I stared at her. "Manage my finances?" "It's temporary," Gideon added smoothly, holding the spare keys I'd given them years ago. Mr. Fallon slid a folder toward me, his expression polished. I picked it up, walked to the trash can, and dropped it in. "The only transition happening here," I said, "is yours, to the front door." Maya's face twisted. "Mom, we're trying to help." "My peace of mind," I said, "will return when you leave." They hesitated, then left, muttering under their breath. I locked the door and stood there, shaking. Their love had never been unconditional. It had always come with a receipt. 3 days later, the next blow landed. A woman appeared at my door with a clipboard. "Mrs. Albright, I'm a social investigator with the Department of Senior Services. We've received reports about your mental state. May I come in?" My blood ran cold. I didn't need to guess who had made the report. I let her in, keeping my voice steady as I called Mr. Weber, a lawyer a friend had recommended. He arrived within the hour, calm and solid as stone. "Show her what you showed me," he said. Together we laid out every document: bills paid, house maintained, doctor's notes. The investigator examined everything, asked her questions, and finally closed her clipboard. "I see no cause for concern," she said. When the door closed behind her, I nearly collapsed into my chair. "They want me declared incompetent," I whispered. Mr. Weber's eyes hardened. "This is financial elder abuse, Mrs. Albright. They're trying to take everything." 2 weeks later, a letter arrived, an official court notice. Maya and Gideon had filed a petition for guardianship. My own daughter wanted legal control over my life. I read the words 3 times, my hands trembling. They had enlisted witnesses, a bitter neighbor, even my pharmacist, whom Maya had tricked into signing a statement. Weber acted quickly. "We'll meet this head on. Get a mental evaluation from a neutral doctor. Not because you need it, but because we'll remove their ammunition." Dr. Moore, brisk but kind, tested my memory, reasoning, and finances. "You're sharper than most 50-year-olds, she said when we finished. Her smile steadied me. Still, I feared the courtroom. I'd seen how easily Maya could summon tears. What if the judge believed her? What if her lies drowned out the truth? A few days before the hearing, my neighbor Eleanor stopped by with cookies. When I told her everything, she squeezed my hand. "You're not alone, Renata. We'll testify." And she did. The day of the hearing, the courthouse smelled faintly of wood polish and nerves. I sat beside Mr. Weber, hands shaking. When our case was called, Maya and Gideon swept in like mourners. Maya took the stand first. She clutched a tissue, eyes downcast. "My mother's decline devastates us," she said, voice trembling. "She isolates, spends recklessly, refuses help. We only want to protect her." Weber stood for cross-examination. "When was the last time you called your mother without asking for money?" Silence. He continued, "Is it true you told her she wasn't invited to your wedding because it was only for special people?" Maya's cheeks flushed. That was taken out of context. Gideon's testimony was worse, painting me as paranoid for installing locks and cameras after their intrusion. But then came the pharmacist, who admitted he'd signed a statement without understanding it, and the neighbor, whose bitterness about my visitors became obvious. Finally, it was my turn. I stood, my legs trembling but my spine straight. I spoke of the years I'd spent supporting them, the $33,400 drained from my savings, the humiliation of seeing their wedding online. "I regret only that it took me this long to say no," I said, voice cracking but steady. The courtroom murmured. Judge Miller leaned forward, watching me with quiet intensity. When he returned after deliberation, the room fell silent. After reviewing the evidence, he said, "This court finds Mrs. Renata Albright fully competent. What I see here is not incapacity, but financial exploitation. The petition for guardianship is denied." Relief crashed over me like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Tears filled my eyes. Maya's face hardened with hatred. As she passed, she hissed, "You'll regret this. You'll die alone." I drew a deep breath. "Better alone with dignity," I whispered, than surrounded by thieves. Outside, Weber placed a hand on my shoulder. It's time to protect your legacy, he said gently. Update your will. That afternoon, I rewrote everything. No lump sums, no loopholes. Every cent now destined for charities helping elders like me, those who'd been tricked by the people they loved. That evening, Eleanor and a few neighbors came by with wine and casseroles. We raised our glasses. To freedom, Eleanor said. To courage, I added softly. For the first time in years, I smiled without fear. Months passed. I sold the old house with its ghosts and moved into a sunny apartment downtown. The air smelled of coffee and bread, laughter echoing from the street below. I joined a volunteer group teaching seniors how to protect their finances. When I told my story, people leaned in, some with tears, others with clenched jaws. My pain had become a warning and, unexpectedly, a kind of healing. I traveled again. In Florence, I sketched the Duomo. In New Orleans, I danced, clumsy but free, to a jazz band's rhythm. Every step was mine, every breath my own. One evening, my phone buzzed. A message from Maya. Mom, we need to talk. I stared at it for a long time, then I typed, begin with an apology, not an amount. I silenced the phone and stepped onto the balcony. The city lights shimmered below, stars above. I looked up and whispered to Robert's memory, I thought love had a price. Now I know, true love never sends an invoice. The night air wrapped around me, gentle and clear. For the first time in my life, I felt utterly, gloriously free.